If someone told you that one of the most powerful ways to restore strength to your legs doesn't come from a gym, a pill bottle, or a complicated therapy, but from something as simple and familiar as a single food in your kitchen, would you believe them? It might sound improbable, but this is not wishful thinking. It is science, carefully observed, clearly measured, and aligned with what many of us have long suspected deep down. The body doesn't always respond to pressure, but it always responds to the right kind of signal. Not long ago, I came across a study published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2023, and what it revealed was both surprising and affirming. Older adults, those over 50, were given a nutrient-rich meal in the evening. What happened by the next morning was remarkable. Their bodies showed measurable improvements in two key areas: muscle protein synthesis and mitochondrial activity. Pause for a moment and take that in. In just 12 hours, not weeks, the body began a process of repair and recharge. And this didn't require physical strain or high effort. It happened through nourishment, quietly, naturally, and effectively. The mitochondria, the tiny powerhouses within your muscle cells, responded as though waking from a long winter's sleep. They reignited the energy systems that fuel strength and vitality. And where did this effect show up most visibly? In the legs. That alone tells us something important. You see, the legs are often the first to signal that something inside is changing. When strength fades, it doesn't shout, it whispers. Stairs feel a little steeper. Balance becomes just a bit less certain. Walking takes more focus, more effort. But this isn't just about mobility. It's about something deeper: our independence, our presence, and our sense of confidence in the world. Too often, we accept these changes as inevitable signs of aging. But I invite you to see it differently. The decline in leg strength and coordination isn't just the result of time passing. More often, it comes from three subtle but powerful forces: long-term undernourishment at the cellular level, low-grade inflammation, and circadian misalignment. It's not about how many birthdays you've had. It's about how your biology is responding to the rhythms of your life. And if biology can drift out of alignment, it can also be gently brought back. That's why what you eat, when you eat, and how you nourish yourself has never been more important, especially if you've been feeling slower, weaker, or more tired than you once did. In our time together, I want to help you understand a single accessible food that, when used with intention, can help restore the lost connection between your nervous system and your muscles. You'll learn how a specific nutrient profile taken in the evening can support overnight neuromuscular repair. You'll see how this food boosts mitochondrial performance, reawakening the body's energy engines. You'll understand how certain amino acids act as signals that activate your natural strength-building pathways, bringing strength not from the outside, but from within. And perhaps most importantly, you'll learn exactly when and how to begin, through a simple, step-by-step practice you can start today. This isn't hype. It isn't magic. It's biology in harmony with timeless wisdom. Once you learn to speak your body's language, you may discover that healing doesn't always take months. Sometimes it begins the very next morning. When we think about aging, we often picture it as something irreversible, a slow, steady unraveling of our abilities. But neuroscience now offers a new image, not of decay, but of dormant potential. You may believe you've lost muscle, that your legs are simply too far gone. But what science now shows is more hopeful. The muscle may still be there. What's been lost is the connection. Research is finding that starting in your 40s, motor neurons, the delicate fibers that carry movement commands from your brain and spinal cord to your muscles, especially in the legs, begin to fade. Not dramatically, but gradually. Year by year, the signal weakens. The message that once shouted now barely whispers. The command to stand tall, to step with certainty, to stabilize. Those signals lose clarity. And when the signal fades, the muscle doesn't disappear. It simply goes quiet, not broken, not destroyed, just uninvited. A powerful study from the University of Calgary brought this truth to light. Researchers looked at older adults experiencing noticeable leg weakness. What they found was eye-opening. The muscle tissue itself was largely intact. The potential was still there. What had broken down was the line of communication between the nervous system and the muscles. And this changes everything. Have you ever stood up from a chair and felt a slight wobble? Not pain, Not an injury, just a momentary hesitation that wasn't there before. That's not just age. That's a misfire of the nervous system, a fading signal. And here's the critical point. That signal can be restored. Your nervous system is not fixed or frozen. It's living, dynamic, and always listening. It wants to reawaken. But to do that, it needs the right kind of input. Your spinal cord, that ancient silent column running down your back, is more than a highway for nerve messages. It is a system that relies on ongoing nourishment to maintain clarity. When undernourished, its voice dims. When supported, it speaks again with strength. Picture your leg muscles as skilled craftsmen waiting for instructions from a foreman, your nervous system. But if the foreman's megaphone has a dying battery, those craftsmen can't act. Not because they've forgotten how to work, but because they can't hear the command. Now imagine replacing that battery, bringing power back to the megaphone. How do you do that? By feeding the neuromuscular junction, the sacred meeting place between nerve and muscle, with the specific nutrients it longs for. Nutrients that restore voltage, that rebuild clarity, that restart connection. And here's the surprising beauty of it all. It doesn't take months. Within a few hours, certain amino acids, B vitamins, and key building blocks for a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which plays a central role in muscle activation, can begin to restore that lost communication. The food I'll be introducing doesn't just contain protein, it carries the exact compounds your body needs to rebuild that neural bridge. So, when you eat it, you're not just feeding your muscles, you're waking them up. So before we talk about gaining muscle mass, let's ask a deeper question. Is your body fully using the muscle you already have? For many older adults, the answer is no. When leg strength fades, it's often not due to a lack of muscle, but to the fading clarity of the signal that controls it. That's why improving signal quality can be more important than simply building muscle size. Soon, we'll go deeper into a specific amino acid, leucine, which acts as the spark for this whole system. Leucine is the knock on the cellular door that tells your body, wake up, it's time to grow strong again. But before we get there, pause and let this idea settle. What if your strength hasn't disappeared? What if it's just been silent? And if it's silent, maybe all it needs is the right signal to return, with nourishment, with care, and with time. Let's take that first step together. Each time I sit down to a meal, I'm reminded of something I've come to deeply believe. Food is more than fuel. It is a message, one that the body is always listening for. After we eat, there's a brief window of time in which the body begins scanning for signals, not just calories. It's searching for cues that tell it what to do next. Among those signals, few are as powerful or as overlooked as an amino acid called leucine. Leucine is what scientists refer to as an essential amino acid. That means our bodies cannot create it. We must get it from food. But its importance goes far beyond simply feeding us. In cellular biology, leucine is known as an anabolic trigger, a kind of biological command switch that tells the body, now is the time to grow, now is the time to rebuild, now is the time to regain strength. One of the key mechanisms it influences is called mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin. You might think of mTOR as a control tower. It decides whether or not your body will begin the process of muscle protein synthesis. Leucine is the finger that presses the start button. This isn't just a theory. In fact, a 2011 study published in the Journal of Nutrition demonstrated that even in older adults, whose muscles tend to be more resistant to these kinds of signals, a single meal rich in leucine was enough to activate muscle repair within hours. That's powerful. Because as we age, the body doesn't lose its ability to respond. It simply requires a clearer, more direct signal. Think about a time when you ate a good meal. Maybe it included meat, eggs, or some protein, and yet you still felt sluggish afterward. Your legs still felt weak. Your energy didn't quite return. That may not have been because you ate too little, but because the meal lacked leucine, or you consumed it at the wrong time. Many older adults eat just enough protein to maintain what they already have, but not enough to trigger growth. There's a difference between maintenance and restoration. And it's this difference that can determine whether your muscles remain stagnant or begin to come back to life. That's why both the type of protein and the timing of that protein matter so much. So let me offer you a simple but transformative daily practice. Make your first meaningful meal of the day a signal meal, one centered around a high leucine protein source. Think of it not just as breakfast, but as a ritual of renewal, a way of telling your body, we are not declining, we are rebuilding. The best sources of leucine come directly from nature: whole eggs, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised poultry, and especially whey protein, a concentrated, highly absorbable source of nourishment derived from milk. Just 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein contains about 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine, which is the minimum needed to activate the mTOR switch and start muscle repair. If you're looking for something quick and convenient, whey protein isolate is a clean, effective option. It's no surprise that athletes, physical therapists, and physicians working with seniors are increasingly turning to this, not as a supplement, but as a recovery strategy. But for me, it's about more than just rebuilding muscle. It's about reestablishing a conversation between food and function, between body and intention, between who you were and who you still are. Leucine doesn't just nourish, it reminds the body that strength is still possible. And often all it takes is the right signal sent at the right time to start the journey again. After you consume a leucine-rich meal, something more meaningful than just muscle building begins. A silent conversation resumes between your nervous system and your muscles. It's a biochemical dialogue, one that, when restored, brings not just strength, but steadiness and presence. The sooner this dialogue is reestablished, the sooner your legs begin to feel grounded again, not just stronger, but more alive. Now let's turn to a molecule that plays a central role in this process: acetylcholine. Every time you choose to stand up, take a step, or lift yourself from a chair, the command begins in your brain. But that command must be translated before it can reach your muscles. Acetylcholine is that translator. It's the neurotransmitter that takes your thoughts and turns them into motion. And without enough of it, the message becomes blurry. Muscles fire late, they misfire, or they fail to respond at all. As we get older, the production of acetylcholine and the sensitivity of the receptors that receive it naturally decline, especially in the motor neurons that govern your legs. That's why things like slight balance loss, hesitant steps, or delayed motion become more common with age. But here is where the hope lies. Acetylcholine levels can be restored, and not over weeks or months, but often within hours. There's a nutrient called choline that serves as the direct building block for acetylcholine. A 2012 review published in Nutrients showed that increasing dietary choline could restore acetylcholine levels in just 6 to 12 hours, especially during periods of neuromuscular activity. That means you could begin feeling a shift by the next morning. And where do you find this powerful nutrient? The answer is refreshingly simple: whole eggs. More specifically, the yolks. Just 2 whole eggs provide over 300 milligrams of choline, more than enough to support healthy neuromuscular signaling. This isn't merely nutritional advice. This is a gentle protocol, one rooted in biology and time-tested foods. If you've noticed tremors in your hands, hesitation in your steps, or difficulty rising from a chair, your body may not be losing strength. It may just be missing the signal. So here is your practice. Within 30 minutes of waking, consume 2 whole eggs. This is the time of day when acetylcholine levels are naturally at their lowest, and when your neurons are most ready to receive support. Pair those eggs with a leucine-rich protein source, such as whey, cottage cheese, or Greek yogurt. This combination sends a clear message to your entire body: wake up, reconnect, move with purpose. I once had a student, Margaret, 72 years old, who told me, "My legs don't listen to me anymore." I invited her to try this simple practice: 2 eggs and a short walk each morning. On the 10th day, she paused at the temple gate, her eyes filled with emotion. "Today," she said, "I stepped off my porch without grabbing the rail." That may sound small, but for her, it was liberation. And for you, it could be a quiet turning point. After just a few mornings of this routine, you may start to notice a change. Your legs feel more responsive, your steps more confident, your balance more stable. Not because you're forcing strength to return, but because you're restoring the signal. You see, strength isn't always about effort. Often it's about communication. When you give your body the right input at the right time, healing doesn't need to be pushed. It unfolds naturally. Let this become your morning ritual, not as a chore, but as a gift to your nervous system. A quiet conversation between your intention and your body's deep wisdom. And over time, you may discover that your legs weren't giving out. They were simply waiting for clarity, waiting for connection, waiting for you to speak their language again. Why does this morning practice work so effectively? The answer lies in how your body naturally functions after a night of rest. Upon waking, you enter a brief but critical state, a time when your system is open, sensitive, and deeply responsive. During this early window, acetylcholine levels, the chemical messenger that bridges thought and movement, are at their lowest. And yet, your motor neurons, those nerve fibers that command muscle activity, are at their most receptive. In this stillness, your body listens more carefully, and when you give it the nourishment it needs, building blocks like choline, leucine, and high-quality protein, it responds with precision. Have you ever noticed that after a protein-rich breakfast, your steps feel more certain, that your legs seem to move with more purpose, that a quiet sense of confidence rises, not just in your mind, but throughout your body? That's not a placebo. It's your central nervous system firing with greater accuracy. Because choline, the precursor to acetylcholine, does more than support muscle function. It rebuilds the bridge between your brain and your limbs. It strengthens the clarity of your body's internal instructions. It reawakens the connection between your intention and your movement. Now, if you follow a plant-based diet or don't eat eggs, there's no need to worry. While egg yolks are the richest and most absorbable source of choline, they're not the only option. Other foods, such as quinoa, Brussels sprouts, and soybeans, contain meaningful amounts of choline. When consumed consistently, they can support your neuromuscular system too. What matters most is consistency and timing, not perfection. But let's take a deeper look at acetylcholine. It is far more than just a molecule that helps you move. It also plays a critical role in cognitive functions, learning, memory, attention, and focus. So when you restore this neurotransmitter, you're not only helping your legs regain power, you're supporting mental clarity, presence, and sharpness. This is one of the quiet truths of aging well. When the nervous system is nourished, both the body and the mind benefit together. Let's now turn to a factor that's overlooked but is just as vital to your strength and stability: circulation. Even when your muscles have the right nutrients and your nerves are ready to send signals, those signals and building blocks can't do their job if the pathways are blocked. Think of your body like a garden. You may have healthy soil, strong seeds, and plenty of sunlight. But if the hose that brings water is kinked, nothing grows. This is what happens in our legs as we age. The arteries and capillaries that deliver oxygen and nutrients to the lower limbs often become more narrow and less flexible with time. This doesn't always cause dramatic symptoms. There might be no pain or swelling, but the effects are there. You might feel heaviness in your legs. You may recover more slowly after activity. Fatigue might linger even after a good night's sleep. You could be eating well and moving often. Without proper blood flow, your strength can't settle where it's needed. That's where a small but mighty molecule comes in: nitric oxide, or NO. This gas is produced by the lining of your blood vessels and acts as a messenger. It tells your vessels when to open, allowing more blood, and with it, more oxygen and nutrients to reach the muscles. Nitric oxide helps ensure that your legs receive what they need, not just to feel stronger, but to feel alive. And thankfully, your body can increase its nitric oxide levels in a completely natural way. There's a particular food, humble, vibrant, and rooted in traditional diets, that helps your body produce nitric oxide: beets. Especially when consumed raw or in juice form, beets are rich in dietary nitrates. Your body converts these nitrates into nitric oxide, which then triggers your blood vessels to dilate. A study published in the Journal of Applied Physiology in 2015 confirmed this effect. Older adults who drank beetroot juice experienced a measurable boost in leg muscle power within hours. Not days, not weeks, just hours. And even more remarkable, the improvement was strongest in the fast twitch muscle fibers, the ones responsible for quick reactions, balance corrections, and preventing falls. These fibers are typically the first to decline with age. And yet in this study, they were the first to respond to nourishment. The results weren't vague. Measurable improvements were recorded in walking speed, stair climbing, and chair standing tests. What this tells us is profound. Your body still has the ability to respond, and respond quickly, when given the right support. So, how can you apply this in daily life? It's simple. About 90 minutes before physical activity, consume 1 or 2 medium-sized beets, or drink 250 to 300 milliliters of beetroot juice. This gives your body enough time to convert the dietary nitrates into nitric oxide and open the blood vessels in your legs. If you want to boost the benefits even further, pair this with 20 minutes of light movement, a walk, some gentle cycling, or dynamic stretching. You're essentially priming your system, turning on the faucet while unkinking the hose. Nourishment and movement working together in harmony. Some people worry about the natural sugars in beets, especially when juiced. But here's what you should know. Their glycemic load is relatively low, and when you consume them before activity, the benefits to performance and circulation far outweigh the small temporary rise in blood sugar. If needed, you can balance the beets with fiber-rich greens or a little protein. And remember, this isn't about athletic performance. This is about feeling grounded, steady, and fully alive in your own body again. The lessons of science are not separate from the lessons of life. Both ask the same essential question: what are you feeding and when? Are you feeding stress and inflammation, or are you feeding strength and clarity? These choices are often quieter than we realize. They live in the rhythm of our mornings, the quality of our breakfasts, and the subtle rituals we build into each day. Tomorrow morning, I invite you to try something. Blend a beetroot smoothie. Add a clean protein, perhaps Greek yogurt or a plant-based powder that suits your needs. Drink it with calm, not as a task, but as a signal. Then go for a short walk. 15 minutes is enough. Not to burn calories, not to hit a fitness goal, but simply to move with intention. In that short window, you will have opened your blood vessels, triggered nitric oxide production, and reactivated neuromuscular signals that may have been quiet for years. Then, within 30 to 60 minutes, follow with a protein-rich breakfast. Think balance, think clarity, think strength. Because what you're truly feeding is not just your muscles. You're feeding your ability to move through life with energy and purpose. This is about momentum, the gentle push forward that builds over time. Every morning you repeat this practice, something subtle shifts. Your legs begin to respond more swiftly, your steps become more certain, but more importantly, something inside you begins to reawaken. You feel like yourself again, not just surviving, but living with presence and intention. This is the quiet power of food, of nourishment done with care. It is not dramatic, but it is lasting. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and the body, even after all these years, is still listening. As we continue our journey inward, there's one more force we need to understand, one that often hides in plain sight, quietly undermining strength, balance, and recovery. It's called chronic inflammation. Unlike the sharp inflammation that occurs after a cut or injury, chronic inflammation simmers slowly beneath the surface. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It may show up as general fatigue, slower recovery, or legs that feel unsteady for no obvious reason. Many people assume these changes are just a normal part of getting older, but what you're actually feeling might be something else, a kind of internal resistance. In 2020, researchers published a study in the Journals of Gerontology showing that even in older adults with good diets and regular activity, higher levels of inflammatory markers, specifically C-reactive protein, CRP, and interleukin-6, IL-6, were directly linked to reduced muscle strength and mass. In other words, inflammation can override effort. It interferes with the mitochondria, the energy engines of your cells. It weakens muscle protein synthesis. It disrupts the ability of your nervous system to recruit muscle fibers effectively. So, even if the muscle is still physically present, the signal that activates it gets distorted. But here's the good news. The solution isn't in a pill, a supplement, or an expensive therapy. The remedy is much closer than you think, right in your own refrigerator. Dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula, Swiss chard, mustard greens, these are more than side dishes. They are medicine in plant form. These humble foods contain natural compounds that cool inflammation, regulate immune responses, and restore clarity to the pathways between nerves and muscles. Among these compounds is quercetin, a powerful polyphenol found in high amounts in kale and mustard greens. Quercetin has been shown to reduce inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, two of the main drivers of low-grade chronic inflammation. A 2019 study in Frontiers in Pharmacology revealed that consuming quercetin-rich foods daily, alongside moderate physical activity, led to a meaningful reduction in inflammation markers within just 2 to 4 weeks. These weren't vague outcomes. They were clear, measurable biological shifts. I remember speaking with a student of mine, Luis, a 69-year-old retired gardener. When I brought up the idea of eating more leafy greens, he chuckled. "I've eaten greens all my life," he said. "Nothing changes." I nodded, then asked him to make just one adjustment, not in quantity, but in timing. Each morning, I suggested saute 1 cup of kale in olive oil, add a squeeze of lemon, and make it part of your first meal. 10 days later, Luis came back with a different tone. "My legs don't feel heavy anymore," he told me. "It's like they've woken up." Sometimes it's not just what we feed the body, but when and how we feed it that creates the shift. You see, by including 1 cup of dark leafy greens in your first meal of the day, you begin to reset your immune system's rhythm. Why the first meal? Because your body, like the sun, follows a circadian rhythm. Hormones, metabolism, and even inflammation follow this internal clock. When you begin the day with anti-inflammatory nutrients, you set the tone for the hours that follow. You teach your body that it is safe, that it can relax, and that in turn frees your body to direct its energy toward growth, repair, and motion. To help your body absorb the fat-soluble nutrients in these greens, such as vitamin K, lutein, and beta-carotene, add a small amount of healthy fat, a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, a slice of avocado, or even a soft-boiled egg. And to support digestion and mineral uptake, add a squeeze of lemon juice or a splash of apple cider vinegar. These are small actions, but done with awareness and consistency, they multiply in effect over time. Now, let's be honest. Dark leafy greens aren't a miracle drug. They don't offer the quick jolt of a painkiller. Their effect is slower, subtler, but it is deep and lasting. With consistent use, you may notice less stiffness, quicker recovery, more stable energy throughout the day. You may find yourself walking more confidently, not because you've forced strength to return, but because you've removed the resistance that was blocking it. Give this practice 10 to 14 days. Observe how you feel. Notice how you move. Pay attention to your posture, your balance, the ease with which you rise from a chair or step forward. These are the subtle victories of inflammation retreating, not through suppression, but through restoration. When the body feels safe, it lets go of its defenses. It begins to listen again. And when it listens, it heals. There's a profound idea here, one that deserves our full attention. Healing is not always loud or dramatic. It doesn't come from fighting the body, but from working with it, from honoring its rhythms, its needs, and its quiet intelligence. We do this not with force, but with food. Not with struggle, but with care. As we approach the next phase of this journey, we'll turn our attention to something just as critical, but often overlooked: the timing of your meals. Just as the foods you choose matter, so does the when. Especially as we age, the muscles become less responsive to nutrition. This is known as anabolic resistance. But it's not a barrier, it's a threshold, a line that can be crossed with the right timing, strategy, and awareness. You'll soon discover how something as simple as distributing your protein intake more evenly throughout the day can activate the muscle-building signals that have been quiet for far too long. You'll learn that you don't need to add more food. You simply need to better align your nourishment with your body's natural cycles. One meal, one rhythm, one morning at a time. So what exactly is happening inside your body when inflammation begins to take hold? It's not like a wildfire. It's more like embers glowing quietly under the surface. You may not see it, but it's there, slowly interfering with the body's natural rhythms. Chronic inflammation doesn't attack outright. Instead, it disrupts the systems that keep you strong and stable. One of the first victims, your mitochondria, the tiny engines inside every muscle cell that fuel every step, every lift, every effort. These mitochondria don't just provide energy, they're essential to muscle function, especially in your legs. But inflammation, when left unchecked, causes these engines to sputter. It impairs muscle protein synthesis, it increases oxidative stress, It scrambles the signals from your nervous system. So even if you have the muscle tissue, your body may struggle to activate it. You may feel slower, weaker, less coordinated, not because you've lost strength, but because inflammation is jamming the communication lines between thought and motion. But here's the surprising part. The remedy isn't a prescription. It's not a supplement from the health store. It's already in your kitchen. In the produce drawer, you'll find one of the most powerful tools for restoring muscle communication and calming inflammation: dark leafy greens. Spinach, kale, mustard greens, Swiss chard. These are more than ingredients for salad. They are some of nature's most potent anti-inflammatory foods. Within these leaves are compounds that support your body's natural healing rhythm. Chlorophyll, polyphenols, magnesium, and naturally occurring nitrates all work together to regulate your immune response, reduce oxidative stress, and clear the static from neuromuscular communication. One compound in particular deserves special attention: quercetin. Found richly in kale, mustard greens, and onions, quercetin has the ability to block inflammatory messengers like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, two of the very cytokines that dull your strength and prolong your recovery. In a 2019 study published in Frontiers in Pharmacology, researchers found that daily consumption of quercetin-rich foods, when combined with even modest physical movement, led to noticeable reductions in systemic inflammation in as little as 2 weeks. Participants didn't need medications or massive diet overhauls, just consistent intake of the right foods at the right times. What's more, the power of leafy greens doesn't just come from their nutrients, it also comes from when and how you eat them. Let's return to timing, which you've already seen is a powerful key to unlocking muscle responsiveness. Your body follows a circadian rhythm. It has a biological clock. Hormones rise and fall. Your metabolism speeds up and slows down. Inflammation, too, follows a daily pattern. By consuming anti-inflammatory foods early in the day, especially with your first meal, you can send a message to your immune system: stand down. We are safe. That's why I recommend this. With your first meal of the day, include 1 cup of sautéed or lightly steamed dark leafy greens. Add a drizzle of olive oil to enhance the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients like vitamin K and beta-carotene. Include a slice of avocado or a soft-boiled egg to increase healthy fat intake and promote nutrient transport. And don't forget a squeeze of lemon juice or a splash of apple cider vinegar to aid digestion and mineral uptake. This simple combination, done daily, can begin resetting the tone of your entire immune system. Let's not pretend this is a magic fix. Leafy greens won't give you instant strength. They won't act like a painkiller. What they offer is something quieter but far more profound. With regular use, you may begin to notice that your legs don't feel as heavy, that your energy lasts longer throughout the day, that you recover from walks or light activity more quickly. These are signs that the internal resistance, the smoldering inflammation, has begun to fade. I remember one of my students, Evelyn, age 74, who had recently begun walking again after months of inactivity. She described her legs as muddy. They moved, but with effort, as if stuck in something thick and slow. I asked her to make one small shift: add 1 cup of steamed spinach to her breakfast 6 days a week. 2 weeks later, she returned with a glow. "It's like my legs are getting the message again," she said. "I don't have to force every step." That's what restoring the signal feels like. Not louder, clearer. We often think of nutrition as fuel, something that gives us energy, like gasoline to a car. But in truth, food is more like information. It tells the body how to behave. It activates or suppresses processes. When you feed the body with nutrients that calm inflammation, what you're really doing is changing the story your immune system is telling. You're replacing the message of danger and tension with one of safety and healing. That's why breakfast matters so much. After a night of fasting, your body is especially sensitive to the first signals it receives. A processed, sugar-heavy breakfast tells your immune system to brace for impact. A balanced, anti-inflammatory breakfast tells it to relax, repair, and regulate. One simple meal, chosen wisely, can shift your biology for hours. Over time, these small choices begin to stack. You feel the difference not only in how you move, but in how you stand, how you walk, how you carry yourself. This is the subtle power of consistency. Healing is rarely loud. It begins in whispers, in the quiet confidence of steady energy, in the return of balance, in the ease of motion that once felt uncertain. As we prepare to enter the next chapter of this journey, I invite you to pause and reflect on how far we've come. You now understand that restoring strength is not about trying harder, it's about nourishing smarter. You've seen how mitochondrial energy, neuromuscular signaling, circulation, and inflammation are all connected, and how food, when used wisely, can awaken these systems within days. And now we're ready for the final step, aligning your meal timing with your body's natural rhythms. Because just as the body listens to what you eat, it also responds to when you eat. Especially in older adults, the muscles become more selective in how they respond to nutrition. This phenomenon, anabolic resistance, can be softened, even reversed, by simply distributing protein evenly throughout the day. Not more food, just better timing. This is where real, lasting strength begins to take root. Let's step into that next layer of understanding together. As we age, one of the most subtle yet impactful changes that takes place inside the body is a weakening of the signal that tells our muscles to grow, repair, and stay active. You may still be eating enough protein, but something else is happening beneath the surface. It's called anabolic resistance, a natural process where aging muscle fibers become less responsive to the very nutrients that once supported them. But here's the important truth. This isn't a flaw in your body. It's not a failure. It's simply a shift in how clearly the body hears the message. And that message can be strengthened again. Think of it like a radio signal. When the receiver becomes slightly damaged or out of tune, the music doesn't stop playing, it just becomes harder to hear. Your muscles work in much the same way. The biological process responsible for maintaining strength and rebuilding tissue, muscle protein synthesis, doesn't disappear with age. It just requires a more intentional signal. And that signal isn't just what you eat, it's also when you eat it. A fascinating 2014 study from the University of Texas found that older adults who spread their protein intake evenly across 3 meals had 25% higher rates of muscle protein synthesis than those who consumed most of their protein at dinner. Simply by spacing out their protein more evenly, these individuals amplified the very process that keeps their muscles strong and responsive. It didn't require more food, just better timing. So how do we bring this into your daily life, into your kitchen, into your rhythm? Step 1. Begin your day with a protein-forward breakfast. Aim for 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein. That could mean a cup of Greek yogurt with hemp seeds and blueberries, or 3 eggs, a handful of sautéed spinach, and a side of lentils or whole grain toast. This first meal sets the tone. It tells your body we are building, we are repairing, we are not in decline, we are in motion. One of my students, Daniel, a retired wrestling coach in his 60s, told me something familiar. I eat plenty of meat at dinner, but I still feel weak in the mornings. I invited him to move that protein to breakfast. Not add more, just shift the timing. 3 weeks later, he returned with a grin. I jogged to catch the bus, he said. It wasn't even intentional, my legs just moved. That's what happens when the signal becomes clear again. The body remembers what it was made to do. Step 2. Move your body after breakfast. It doesn't have to be intense. A walk, a few light stretches, a gentle set of chair-supported squats. These simple actions reinforce the signal. They tell your muscles, yes, we're awake. Yes, we're using this fuel. Then, within 30 to 60 minutes of that movement, have your second meal or snack, something that combines protein and complex carbohydrates, a smoothie with protein powder and a banana, a plate of quinoa, black beans, olive oil, and herbs. These carbs aren't about raising blood sugar. They create a gentle rise in insulin, a hormone that helps shuttle amino acids into your muscle cells where they're needed for repair and growth. Step 3. Rethink dinner. Resist the temptation to make it your largest protein intake of the day. While dinner can certainly include protein, research shows your body can only utilize about 30 to 40 grams of it at one time for muscle building. Anything beyond that is likely stored or burned for energy. So rather than overloading the evening plate, focus on balance. A moderate portion of protein, a rainbow of vegetables, and healthy fats. This approach honors the rhythm of your biology. It tells your body, we are no longer hoarding resources. We are working with intention and clarity. When you follow this structure, when you nourish your body in alignment with its natural responsiveness, you are not just feeding muscles, you are speaking to them. You are reminding your body that it is still capable, still adaptable, still vibrant. And that's the heart of everything we've explored. Muscle is not just tissue. It's a vital organ. It influences your metabolism, it helps regulate blood sugar, it supports balance and stability, and perhaps most importantly, it safeguards your independence. The ability to stand tall, to walk steadily, to move with confidence. That is your freedom. That is your presence in the world. Let's take a moment to bring everything together now. The journey we've taken isn't just a series of steps, it's a system. A system rooted in clarity, not complexity. We began by exploring how nitric oxide supports blood flow and how beetroot, especially in concentrated juice form, can restore leg circulation in hours. We examined acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter that activates your muscles, and how eggs, particularly the yolks, can reboot neuromuscular communication. We looked at how inflammation quietly undermines strength and how leafy greens, rich in quercetin, help tame that internal fire. And now we've seen how meal timing, simply eating the right foods at the right hours, can revive your muscle-building capacity even in the face of anabolic resistance. This is not magic. It's biology practiced with awareness. And when you work with your body, not against it, transformation happens more quickly and more fully than you might imagine. To have made it to this point says something important about you. You've already begun the process. You've chosen to reconnect with your body's innate intelligence. You've chosen to listen, to act, to nourish. So now, take the next step. Not a giant leap, not an overwhelming overhaul, just the next small, consistent action. One choice, one meal, one breath at a time. And over the days and weeks that follow, you may begin to feel that the legs beneath you are not only stronger, but steadier, more responsive, and truly your own again. Isn't it remarkable that something as natural and ordinary as food, grown in the soil, touched by sunlight, can restore blood flow, reactivate muscle fibers, and sharpen the signal between brain and body in just a few hours? This is not a hopeful theory. It's human physiology. Your endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels, listens directly to what you feed it. When you consume foods rich in natural nitrates, antioxidants, and polyphenols, like beetroot, you're not just eating, you're speaking to your body's control centers in the language they understand. And your muscles, especially the fast-twitch fibers responsible for balance and reaction, are listening too. These fibers grow more sensitive with age, but also more responsive to the right signals. Nutrition is not just about digestion, it's a code. Your gut, often called the second brain, translates this code, sending messages not only to your muscles, but to your nervous system, to your strength, to your confidence. Timing, again, plays a crucial role. When you align meals with movement, however light, you reduce resistance and amplify recovery. That's why tomorrow morning, you don't need to wake up with a long to-do list. You only need a few intentional steps. Begin your day with a beetroot smoothie. Add clean protein, Greek yogurt, a plant-based powder, or eggs. Then walk just 15 minutes, not for exercise, for flow. In that moment, you will have reawakened circulation, fired neuromuscular signals, and primed your system for the day ahead. Follow with a protein-rich breakfast paired with leafy greens and healthy fats. Speak clearly to your body, speak often, because what you are truly nourishing isn't just your muscles, it's your ability to live with strength, with steadiness, with presence. This is not just about aging well, it's about returning to yourself. You are not broken, you are listening, and your body, finally, is ready to respond.